Have you ever noticed there's a moment when nothing around you changes, but everything feels different? No big breakthrough, no dramatic announcement, no sudden miracle, just a shift. Conversations feel lighter, opportunities appear unexpectedly. Resistance that once felt heavy starts dissolving, and you can't explain it. It's like something invisible just started cooperating. Here's what most people never realize. Reality doesn't change the moment you want it to. It changes the moment you become coherent. There is a precise point when your identity stabilizes, when your emotions stop reacting, when your nervous system feels safe, when you stop forcing outcomes. That is the moment the field begins responding. Not because you begged for it, but because you finally matched it. And today, I'm going to break down the 7 shifts that flip that switch. If you understand this, you'll never chase reality again. You'll watch it start aligning, and once you see it happen, you'll never unsee it. 1. The field responds to internal coherence. Most people think the quantum field responds to desire. It doesn't. It responds to coherence, and that's the part nobody talks about. You can repeat affirmations all day. You can visualize success every morning. You can say, "I'm abundant, I'm powerful, I'm chosen." But if beneath those words your body feels anxious, if your chest tightens when you think about money, if your stomach drops when you imagine being seen, then your signal is split, and a split signal has no power. The field doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are consistently broadcasting. Thought is electrical. Emotion is magnetic. When those two move together, they create a coherent signal. But when your thoughts say, "I'm ready," and your emotions whisper, "I'm scared," you generate interference, and interference weakens manifestation. This is why so many people feel stuck. They are mentally rehearsing the future, while emotionally anchored to the past. They think abundance, but feel unworthy. They think love, but expect abandonment. They think success, but fear judgment. That internal contradiction creates noise, and noise scrambles your signal. Imagine trying to tune into a radio station with static cutting through every second. The station exists, the signal exists, but you can't receive it clearly because distortion keeps interrupting the transmission. That distortion is internal conflict. The moment you resolve it, something shifts. Internal coherence is not about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about integrating it. It's about noticing the fear and choosing alignment anyway. It's about bringing your nervous system into agreement with your vision. When your mind believes something is possible and your body feels safe enough to hold it, you create harmony, and harmony amplifies signal strength. This is the moment the field begins responding, because now you are no longer sending mixed instructions. Most people are unknowingly telling reality 2 different stories. I want growth, but also, growth feels dangerous. I want visibility, but also, if I'm seen, I'll be judged. I want wealth, but also, people like me don't keep money. Those hidden beliefs are not quiet, they are loud, and they dominate the broadcast. The quantum field does not analyze your words. It resonates with your dominant frequency. Your dominant frequency is shaped by repetition. What do you repeatedly feel? What emotional state do you return to daily? Anxiety, doubt, comparison, scarcity, or calm expectation, self-trust, quiet certainty? You don't activate the field by trying harder. You activate it by becoming internally unified. When your thoughts and emotions align around the same vision, something powerful happens. You stop leaking energy. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop unconsciously sabotaging opportunity. And that shift changes how you move through the world. Your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your decisions become cleaner. Your hesitation fades. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. The field feels it. Coherence creates momentum. This is why some individuals seem to suddenly attract breakthroughs. It wasn't sudden. It was alignment. They reached a point where their internal world stopped contradicting itself. They stopped arguing with their own vision. They stopped wanting one thing and fearing it at the same time. And the moment that internal war ended, their external resistance softened. That's the real activation, not a mystical flash, not a dramatic event, a quiet internal agreement. A moment where you say, fully and honestly, "This is who I am becoming," and your body no longer resists that statement. When that happens, your signal sharpens, and a sharp signal travels far. The quantum field doesn't reward effort. It reflects coherence. If you want reality to respond differently, you must first remove the static within you. Because the moment your inner world becomes clear, the outer world has something precise to answer, and that's when it starts responding. 2. Stop forcing, start allowing. Force feels powerful, but it's usually fear wearing armor. Most people believe intensity equals effectiveness. They push harder, they think louder, they obsess more, they try to bend reality into submission. And the harder they push, the more resistance they feel. Why? Because force is rooted in lack. When you force, you are subtly saying, "It's not here yet. I need to make it happen. If I don't control this, I'll lose." That frequency is contraction, and contraction does not expand outcomes. The quantum field responds to dominant emotional states. If your dominant state is urgency, anxiety, or desperation, you amplify more situations that match that emotional tone. Force signals distrust, and distrust weakens alignment. Allowing is different. Allowing is not passive. It is not laziness. It is not indifference. Allowing is controlled power. It is the calm confidence of someone who knows the process is unfolding. When you allow, your nervous system relaxes. When you relax, your signal stabilizes. When your signal stabilizes, your outcomes accelerate. Think about the moments in your life when something worked effortlessly. You weren't gripping it tightly, you weren't obsessing, you weren't checking every second to see if it had arrived. You were aligned, clear, detached from panic. That is allowing. Force comes from the belief that you are separate from the outcome. Allowing comes from the belief that the outcome is already in motion. When you chase relentlessly, you put the goal on a pedestal. You create psychological distance between you and what you want. And the more distance you feel, the more you try to close it through effort. But effort cannot close energetic distance. Alignment does. The moment you stop trying to wrestle reality into shape, you free up energy. That energy doesn't disappear. It redirects. Instead of fighting what isn't here yet, you begin embodying the version of you who already expects it. That subtle shift changes your posture, your tone, your choices. You stop making decisions from fear. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop overcompensating. You move with precision instead of panic, and the field responds to precision. Forcing creates friction. Allowing removes friction. Friction is what slows response. Most delays in life are not because something isn't possible. They exist because you are gripping it too tightly. Attachment says, "I need this." Detachment says, "I align with this." One creates anxiety, the other creates magnetism. When you are deeply attached to an outcome, your mind constantly scans for proof it's working. Every delay feels like failure, every silence feels like rejection, every obstacle feels personal. That emotional instability distorts your signal. But when you allow, you remain stable regardless of temporary appearances. You trust timing, you trust the process, you trust yourself. That trust becomes your dominant broadcast. And trust is a powerful frequency. The field responds to certainty faster than it responds to urgency. Urgency says, "Hurry." Certainty says, "It's inevitable." And inevitability carries weight. There is a moment when you shift from chasing to embodying, from needing to expecting, from forcing to allowing. That moment feels quiet. You don't feel desperate anymore. You don't feel the need to convince anyone. You don't feel the need to prove anything. You simply act from alignment. And ironically, that's when results begin appearing. Because the energy you were wasting on tension is now fueling clarity. When you stop pushing against reality, you stop activating resistance. When you stop fighting the current, you move with it. And movement with the current travels faster than struggle against it. The field is not something you overpower. It is something you harmonize with, and harmony cannot be forced. It can only be allowed. The moment you shift from, "I must make this happen," to "I am aligned with what is unfolding," something subtle changes. You become steady, and steadiness is magnetic. That's when it starts responding differently. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally stopped resisting it. 3. Emotional mastery changes outcomes. Most people believe their circumstances control their emotions. But in reality, their emotions are reinforcing their circumstances. This is the loop. Something happens, you react. That reaction strengthens a pattern. The pattern recreates similar situations, and you call it coincidence. But it's conditioning. Reaction is automatic. It feels justified. It feels natural. But every time you react unconsciously, you are telling the field, this is who I am. This is the frequency I live in. Anger reinforces conflict. Fear reinforces instability. Insecurity reinforces rejection, not because the universe is punishing you, but because repetition strengthens probability. Most people live in emotional reflex. Someone disrespects them, they explode. Someone ignores them, they spiral. Something delays, they panic. But reaction is energy leaking outward without control. And leaked energy weakens your signal. Emotional mastery is not suppression, it is regulation. It is the ability to feel without becoming consumed. When you feel anger but do not let it dictate your behavior, you interrupt the old pattern. When you feel fear but choose stability anyway, you shift direction. That interruption matters more than you think, because the quantum field is responsive to consistency. When you consistently respond from awareness instead of reflex, you begin rewriting your emotional baseline. Your baseline determines what feels normal to you. If chaos is your baseline, peace will feel uncomfortable. If stress is your baseline, calm will feel unfamiliar. And people unconsciously recreate what feels familiar. That's why emotional mastery is powerful. It changes what feels normal. The moment you choose not to react impulsively, you create space. And space is where transformation begins. In that space, you are no longer trapped by the past version of yourself. You are not reacting from old wounds. You are not defending old insecurities. You are not replaying old narratives. You are responding from choice. Choice is power, and power shifts outcomes. When you stop reacting to every trigger, something surprising happens. Triggers lose strength. Situations that once destabilized, you start feeling smaller. Conflicts dissolve faster. Opportunities appear in places that once felt blocked. Because you are no longer amplifying the old frequency. Every emotional reaction sends a signal. If you constantly react with scarcity, you reinforce scarcity thinking. If you constantly react with jealousy, you reinforce comparison. If you constantly react with doubt, you reinforce hesitation. But when you respond with calm certainty, even when things are unclear, you are broadcasting stability. Stability is rare, and rare signals carry weight. The field responds to dominant patterns. If your dominant pattern is chaos, you get more chaos. If your dominant pattern is grounded awareness, you begin attracting situations that match that steadiness. This is why emotional control is not weakness. It is strategic. It is the ability to remain internally consistent, regardless of external turbulence. And internal consistency strengthens coherence. The less you react, the more you observe. The more you observe, the more you understand. The more you understand, the less you feel threatened. And when you stop feeling threatened, your nervous system relaxes. A relaxed nervous system sends a powerful signal: safety. Safety expands possibility. Survival shrinks it. Most people live in subtle survival mode. They defend, overthink, anticipate worst-case scenarios. That constant vigilance broadcasts instability. But when you master your emotional responses, you exit survival. You enter intention, and intention reshapes outcomes. The moment you don't react the way you used to, you alter the trajectory of events. Because you are no longer feeding the old pattern, you are creating a new one, and the field responds to the pattern you reinforce most consistently. Emotional mastery is not about never feeling. It is about choosing which feelings become your identity. When calm becomes your default, when self-trust becomes your baseline, when patience becomes your strength, reality begins reflecting that back. And that's when you notice something subtle. Situations that used to escalate now resolve. People who once triggered you lose influence. Opportunities that once felt out of reach begin aligning, not because the world changed overnight, but because you did. And the moment you changed your emotional frequency, the field adjusted to match it. 4. Identity determines what responds. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you are. This is where most people misunderstand the quantum field. They think it responds to goals, vision boards, affirmations, or temporary motivation. It doesn't. It responds to identity. Identity is deeper than desire. Desire is something you reach toward. Identity is something you operate from. And the field reorganizes around what you operate from. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will subconsciously make choices that maintain struggle. You will hesitate at opportunity. You will undercharge. You will delay action. You will assume things won't work out. Not because you lack ability, but because your identity demands consistency. The mind will protect identity before it protects possibility. If you identify as the overlooked one, you will notice every slight. You will interpret neutral situations as rejection. You will shrink before being fully seen, and the field will mirror that perception back to you, because perception shapes signal, and signal shapes response. This is why two people can stand in the same room with the same opportunities and walk away with completely different results. One sees possibility, the other sees threat. One operates as "I belong here." The other operates as "I hope I don't get exposed." Identity speaks before you do. It influences posture, tone, decision speed, risk tolerance, resilience after failure, and all of those micro behaviors shift probability. The field does not hand out random outcomes. It responds to patterns of being. If your identity is built on past wounds, abandoned, betrayed, not enough, then even when something good approaches, your system may reject it. You may overthink it, push it away, test it, sabotage it, because it doesn't match who you believe you are. And the mind always seeks consistency. Consistency feels safe, even if that consistency is struggle. This is why identity work is uncomfortable. To change your results, you must change who you believe you are, not superficially, not through forced confidence, but through repeated internal evidence. You begin asking different questions. Instead of, "Why does this always happen to me?" you ask, "How would the version of me who wins handle this?" Instead of, "What if I fail?" you ask, "What if this is exactly where I'm meant to step forward?" That shift may seem subtle, but identity is built through repetition. Every time you choose courage over avoidance, you deposit evidence into a new self-concept. Every time you hold your boundary calmly, you reinforce strength. Every time you follow through despite fear, you reinforce capability. And gradually, the internal narrative changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone hoping for change. You start seeing yourself as someone who creates it. That internal shift alters how you interpret events. Setbacks no longer define you. They refine you. Silence no longer threatens you. It strengthens you. Delays no longer feel like rejection. They feel like redirection. And when your interpretation changes, your emotional frequency changes. When your emotional frequency changes, your signal changes. When your signal changes, the field responds differently. This is the moment when life starts feeling less random, because you are no longer operating from the identity shaped by your past. You are operating from the identity shaped by intention, and identity drives behavior automatically. If you believe you are disciplined, you act disciplined without constant debate. If you believe you are worthy, you accept opportunities without self-sabotage. If you believe you are capable, you attempt what others hesitate to try. Identity eliminates friction. It removes the internal argument. And without internal argument, energy flows cleanly. That clean flow strengthens coherence. Coherence strengthens response. The field doesn't need you to beg. It needs you to become. Become the person who belongs in the reality you desire. Not someday, now. Speak from that identity. Decide from that identity. Walk from that identity. Because reality organizes itself around who you consistently show up as. The moment you stop identifying with your limitations and start identifying with your expansion, something subtle happens. You stop asking for permission. You stop shrinking to be comfortable. You stop narrating yourself as small. And when you stop narrating yourself as small, the world stops treating you as small. Identity is not a label, it is a frequency anchor. And the moment that anchor shifts, everything attached to it begins to move. You don't force the field to respond. You shift who you are, and response becomes inevitable. 5. Detachment collapses delay. Attachment feels like commitment, but most of the time, it's fear. Attachment says, I need this to happen. Detachment says, I align with this, but I am whole without it. That difference changes everything. When you are attached to an outcome, your emotional state becomes dependent on it. You check for signs constantly, you analyze every detail, you interpret delays as failure, you assume silence means rejection. Your mood rises and falls based on external movement. That instability distorts your signal. The quantum field responds to dominant emotional patterns. If your dominant pattern is tension, urgency, and obsession, you are broadcasting lack, and lack extends waiting. Attachment creates resistance because it carries fear underneath it. Fear of not getting it, fear of losing it, fear of being without it. That fear activates survival energy, and survival energy contracts possibility. When you grip something too tightly, you create friction, and friction slows momentum. Think about how your body feels when you're desperate for something to work. Your chest tightens, your breathing becomes shallow, your thoughts loop, you replay conversations, you try to control outcomes. That is not magnetism, that is strain. Strain signals instability. Instability weakens coherence, and weakened coherence delays response. Detachment is different. Detachment is not indifference. It is not apathy. It is not pretending you don't care. Detachment is emotional sovereignty. It is wanting something deeply without needing it to validate you. It is moving toward a goal without collapsing if it takes time. It is believing in the outcome without obsessing over its timing. Detachment stabilizes your nervous system, and a stable nervous system strengthens your broadcast. When you are detached, you act with clarity instead of pressure. You speak calmly instead of anxiously. You decide cleanly instead of hesitantly. You stop trying to manipulate timing. You stop forcing proof. And ironically, that's when things begin moving, because you removed resistance. Most delays are not punishment. They are pressure created by attachment. The more you fear losing something, the more you energetically push it away. The more you cling, the more tension builds, and tension distorts the natural flow of events. Detachment collapses delay because it removes that tension. When you detach, you send a powerful message. I trust the alignment. Trust is expansive. Trust is steady. Trust is magnetic. When your emotional state is steady, probability reorganizes more smoothly around you. You begin noticing something subtle. You stop overanalyzing text messages. You stop refreshing notifications. You stop checking metrics every hour. You stop replaying worst-case scenarios. Your mind becomes quieter, and in that quiet, clarity sharpens. From clarity, your actions improve, and improved actions create improved outcomes. Detachment gives you back your power. When you are attached, your power is outsourced to the result. When you are detached, your power returns to you. You become less reactive, less needy, less dependent on immediate validation, and the field responds to self-sufficiency faster than desperation. This is why sometimes the moment you let go, things finally happen. It's not coincidence, it's release. You removed the energetic chokehold. You stopped suffocating the outcome with fear. You stopped trying to control every variable. You allowed movement. Detachment also protects your identity. When you are attached, failure feels like a verdict on who you are. When you are detached, failure becomes feedback, and feedback sharpens direction instead of crushing momentum. The person who is detached moves with confidence. They pursue fully, they commit deeply, but they do not collapse emotionally if the timeline shifts. That emotional independence creates strength, and strength stabilizes your signal. The field responds to dominant frequency. If your frequency is, I cannot be okay without this, you amplify dependence. If your frequency is, I am aligned, and what is meant for me will unfold, you amplify inevitability. Inevitability carries weight. The moment you detach from needing immediate proof, your energy becomes lighter. You stop gripping, you start flowing, and flow accelerates. The paradox is this: the tighter you hold, the longer you wait. The calmer you release, the faster it moves. Detachment is not giving up. It is upgrading your emotional position. You move from scarcity to sufficiency, from fear to trust, from tension to stability, and stability strengthens coherence. Coherence strengthens signal. Signal strengthens response. The moment you release the desperate need for it to happen, you remove the very barrier that was slowing it down, and that's when it starts responding faster than you expected. 6. Your nervous system is the antenna. You can think powerful thoughts. You can repeat affirmations. You can visualize success in perfect detail. But if your nervous system is in survival mode, your signal is distorted. This is the part almost no one talks about. The quantum field does not just respond to your thoughts. It responds to your state. And your state is controlled by your nervous system. If your body feels unsafe, it will broadcast instability no matter how positive your words sound. Most people are unknowingly living in low-grade survival. Constant scrolling, constant comparison, constant urgency, constant mental noise. Their breathing is shallow, their shoulders are tight, their sleep is fragmented, and they're trying to manifest abundance from a body that feels threatened. It doesn't work, because survival energy is contraction. When your nervous system is in fight or flight, your brain narrows focus. It prioritizes danger. It scans for problems. It prepares for loss. That state sends one clear message: there is not enough. And the field amplifies what you consistently embody. Scarcity embodied creates scarcity reflected. This is why someone can say, "I trust the process," while their body is tense and restless. The words are calm, the frequency is not. Your nervous system is the antenna through which you broadcast. If the antenna is shaking, the signal breaks. If the antenna is steady, the signal strengthens. Think about the moments in your life when things flowed effortlessly. You weren't frantic, you weren't obsessing, you weren't panicking, you were calm. Calm is not passive, calm is powerful. When your body feels safe, your mind expands. You think creatively. You see opportunity. You make bold decisions without overthinking. You respond instead of react. That internal safety shifts your frequency, and safety expands possibility. Most people try to attract from anxiety. They want money because they feel pressure. They want love because they feel lonely. They want success because they feel behind. But anxiety is a distorted broadcast. It tells the field you are lacking, and lack extends delay. Regulation changes everything. When you slow your breathing, you tell your body you are safe. When you pause before reacting, you strengthen control. When you allow silence instead of filling it with noise, you stabilize your internal rhythm. That rhythm becomes your dominant state, and dominant states shape outcomes. The field responds more quickly to calm certainty than to urgent desperation. Urgency feels like chaos. Certainty feels like gravity. Gravity pulls. Chaos scatters. If your nervous system is calm, your decisions sharpen. You stop chasing people who aren't aligned. You stop overcommitting to prove your worth. You stop tolerating environments that drain you. You start choosing from clarity instead of fear. And those choices shift probability. Your nervous system also determines how long you can hold a new identity. If you try to step into a bigger version of yourself while your body feels unsafe, you will self-sabotage, because expansion feels threatening to an unregulated system. It feels unfamiliar, it feels risky, and the body pulls you back to what feels predictable. That's why growth requires regulation. You must train your body to feel safe with success, safe with visibility, safe with abundance, safe with uncertainty. That safety stabilizes your broadcast. The more regulated you become, the less reactive you are. The less reactive you are, the less you collapse under pressure. The less you collapse, the more consistent your signal. Consistency builds momentum. Momentum accelerates response. This is not mystical, it is physiological. When your heart rate is steady and your breathing is deep, your brain enters a state of openness. In openness, you perceive options. In survival, you perceive threats. Which state do you think creates better outcomes? Your nervous system is either expanding your field or shrinking it. Every moment you choose calm over panic, you strengthen your antenna. Every moment you pause instead of spiraling, you sharpen your signal. Every moment you ground yourself instead of chasing validation, you stabilize your frequency. And stability changes timing. The moment your body stops broadcasting fear, your signal becomes clear. Clear signals travel further, and the field responds to clarity, not noise, not tension, not chaos. Clarity. If you want reality to shift faster, stop trying to control it mentally. Start regulating yourself physically. Slow your breath, relax your jaw, release your shoulders. Feel the present moment, because when your body feels safe, your broadcast becomes powerful. And when your broadcast becomes powerful, that's when it truly starts responding. 7. Silence is the activation point. There is a moment in every transformation that feels empty. No validation, no visible progress, no dramatic breakthrough, just silence. And most people panic in that silence. They assume nothing is happening. They assume they did something wrong. They assume the process failed. So they fill the silence with overthinking, with doubt, with reaction, with noise. And the moment they fill it, they interrupt what was unfolding. Because silence is not absence. Silence is integration. When you shift internally your identity, your regulation, your detachment, reality does not always respond immediately in visible ways. There is a recalibration period, a quiet restructuring, a subtle reorganization of probability. And that reorganization requires stillness. Think about how seeds grow underground before they break the surface. The growth is happening long before it becomes visible. But if you keep digging the soil to check progress, you disrupt the process. Most people keep digging. They need proof. They need confirmation. They need movement. They can see. But the quantum field does not operate on your impatience. It operates on coherence and consistency. Silence tests consistency. When nothing appears to be happening, who do you become? Do you revert back to doubt? Do you question your alignment? Do you collapse emotionally because there's no visible reward? Or do you remain steady? This is the activation point, because the moment you remain steady in silence, you signal true certainty, not temporary excitement, not emotional hype. Certainty. Silence exposes your relationship with trust. If you only feel powerful when things are visibly moving, then your power is conditional. But when you can sit in stillness without spiraling, when you can continue acting aligned without external applause, when you can breathe calmly while nothing obvious is shifting, you reach a different level of signal strength. You are no longer dependent on evidence. You are anchored in identity. That anchoring changes everything. Silence also strips away ego. Ego wants recognition. Ego wants immediate results. Ego wants to announce progress. But real alignment doesn't need announcement. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply remains consistent. And consistency in silence amplifies coherence. Most people sabotage breakthroughs because they cannot tolerate quiet space. They assume silence equals stagnation, but silence is often preparation. It is the space where old timelines dissolve, the space where outdated connections fade, the space where new probabilities align without interference. When you stop reacting to silence, you stop collapsing timelines prematurely. You allow expansion to solidify, and solid expansion lasts longer than rushed manifestation. There is power in not needing to prove anything. There is power in not explaining your process. There is power in not reacting when others misunderstand your stillness. Because stillness is not weakness. It is stability under pressure, and stability is magnetic. When you stop chasing noise, you begin hearing intuition more clearly. When you stop filling space with distractions, clarity sharpens. When you stop narrating every shift, you preserve energy. That preserved energy strengthens your field. Silence is where refinement happens. It is where your emotional mastery is tested. It is where detachment is proven. It is where your identity either holds or fractures. If your identity is real, silence will not shake it. If your regulation is real, delay will not destabilize you. If your detachment is real, you will not grasp at movement. And when all those pieces hold steady, the signal becomes undeniable. That is when acceleration begins. But acceleration feels sudden only because you respected the silence. You did not interfere. You did not collapse. You did not retreat back into old patterns. You stayed coherent. You stayed aligned. You stayed grounded. Silence is the space between broadcast and response. If you remain stable in that space, response strengthens. If you panic in that space, response weakens. The final activation point is not action. It is restraint. It is the discipline to remain calm when nothing appears to be happening. It is the confidence to continue forward without visible confirmation. It is the strength to trust the invisible shift. Because the field does not reward noise, it responds to depth, and depth is cultivated in silence. The moment you stop fearing quiet space, the moment you stop rushing the unfolding, the moment you realize that stillness is not delay but alignment, that's when it truly begins working for you. Not loudly, not dramatically, but powerfully. And once it starts responding from that place of silence, it doesn't stop. At some point, you'll notice it, not in a dramatic explosion of success, not in a loud announcement from the universe, but in something quieter. You'll feel less reactive, less desperate, less attached. You'll move differently, and then reality will start moving differently too. That's when you'll realize it was never about forcing outcomes. It was about becoming coherent. It was about mastering your emotions, upgrading your identity, regulating your nervous system, releasing attachment, trusting silence. Because the quantum field was never ignoring you. It was waiting for you to stabilize, waiting for your signal to become clear. And once it does, response becomes inevitable. So the next time things feel still, don't panic, don't rush, don't collapse back into old patterns. Stay aligned, stay steady, because the moment you stop chasing reality is the moment it begins responding to you. If this shifted something in you, stay with this work. The deeper you align, the faster things reorganize. And remember, the field doesn't reward noise, it responds to depth. I'll see you in the next one.